Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you know the Lord is with you wherever you find yourself scattered today, and that you know that His presence with you is more than enough for whatever you might face today. When we continue on with our story of Elijah, we're in 1 Kings chapter 18, and Elijah is about to meet King Ahab. And so I will pick it up at verse 15 of chapter 18. Elijah said to Obadiah, "As the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, I will surely present myself to Ahab today." So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" "I have not made trouble for Israel," Elijah replied, "but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Now there's going to be a big contest up on Mount Carmel to see who is really the Lord, who is really God, whether it's the Lord or whether it's Baal, the storm god. But that's coming later. What I want to focus on today is kind of who's the source of the trouble. So you'll notice that King Ahab, he called Elijah, "You troubler of Israel," because Elijah had told King Ahab that as surely as the God of Israel lives, there's not going to be any dew or any rain upon the land except at the word of the Lord through Elijah. And there hasn't been rain for 3+ years. And so King Ahab, he sees Elijah as the troubler of Israel. But Elijah said, "No, Ahab, you're the one who has brought trouble upon Israel, because you have worshipped Baal. You have the prophets of Baal, and Jezebel, your wife, she serves Baal, and Asherah, the female counterpart to Baal, the storm god." And so the true trouble is coming from King Ahab and his wife Jezebel and their worship of Baal. And they're not following the commands, the statutes of the Lord, to worship only the Lord and to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so Ahab is accusing Elijah of being the troubler, when in truth he is the troubler of Israel. And so I've been thinking about that a little bit, and how often we can kind of react like Ahab reacted. That when we hear a word from the Lord, it can kind of cause us trouble. We don't want to have to change. Maybe something is being called out in our lives, and we'd rather just continue on with the status quo. And so we see the Elijahs in our lives, those who bring us truth, those who bring us the word, they're stirring up trouble for us. And so we call them the troublers, when really it's our own behavior, it's our own actions, our own attitudes that's actually causing the trouble. And so it gives me pause for a moment to kind of stop and reflect and to kind of humble myself. Wait a minute, you know, is somebody else really bringing the trouble? Or is the trouble actually my behavior, my attitude, my responses? Am I lined up with what the Lord would have me to do? Or am I actually resisting what the Lord would have me to do? So that's kind of the first thought, is to not get defensive when somebody's causing me trouble, but to have to kind of stop and think, okay, Lord, how do I actually line up with you? The second kind of thought with this is, here is Elijah speaking truth, speaking the word of the Lord, and he's being accused of being the troubler. And so often I think that when we feel like we are, speaking truth, that we should be received and that we should be blessed for speaking truth. And yet, how often the case might be that we're actually accused of being troublers. And so I think there's kind of a couple of assumptions going on here that are uncovered. That one is, we assume that when someone else is speaking to us that causes trouble, that it's their fault, not ours. And so that assumption kind of needs to get blown up. We need to be humble enough to look at ourselves, to see how do we line up with the word of the Lord. And then the second assumption that needs to get blown up is we assume that whenever we're speaking the word of the Lord, that whenever we're speaking truth, we're going to be well received. Well, that's not always the case. Often the case is that when we speak the word of the Lord, when we speak truth, people see us as causing trouble. I mean, look what happened to Jesus. And so wherever you find yourself scattered today, kind of check yourself on those two assumptions. The assumption one, that someone else must be stirring up the trouble, that there's nothing wrong with me. No, I better do some self-reflection. How do I match up with the word of the Lord? And then assumption number two, I think that just because I'm speaking the word of the Lord, I should be received with blessing. That may be far from the truth. That the word of the Lord may actually be stirring up trouble, and I still need to be willing to speak it. Well, wherever you find yourself scattered today, challenge you to think a little bit more about who's the true troubler of Israel, Elijah or Ahab? And then how does that fit with the troubling in our lives? God bless. Have a great day.